Life on the Nile was a balance between the fertile valley and the desert, between the black land and the red land, the land of life and the land of death, tranquility and chaos. This manifested in all of Egyptian culture and the way they viewed the world, which personified in the concept of Maat. Hey folks, this is James, aka Threscurnis, and welcome back to the Scroll of Thoth. Egypt was glorious. It affected me profoundly, and I feel much more informed and competent in creating this new series of videos on building your own ancient Egyptian-based magical practice. You'll be seeing a lot of the video I shot here on the channel as B-roll, but as promised, I won't be dumping my home movies, Egypt, on the channel. If you're interested, I left a link in the description where you can watch them on my personal YouTube channel. I know it's been a long time since my last video. There are good reasons for that, but I'll save those announcements until the end. What I will say is that this video was hard. It really emphasized my eternal struggle between trying to stick to the facts and being more academic, even though I'm not a scholar, and making it more personal. I'm going to lean a little more on the personal in this video, and it seems to be the way people like it. As I said in my last Getting to Know the Scroll of Thoth video, this new series will inform people about foundational concepts in Egyptian religion and magic, which are pretty much the same thing. I am a big believer in having a coherent personal tradition. Not that you can't deviate, I sure do, but it provides a way for your magic to make sense in context. It provides a way of doing things that are a part of a whole. In emergent magic, we call this your citadel, your cornerstone of belief, which may change over time, but at least provides you a perspective to start from. Of course, in my opinion, the ancient Egyptians set an excellent foundation. Just look at the pyramids. Of course, first our usual caveats and warnings. 1, ancient Egyptian culture lasted over 3,000 years and varied in many ways depending on time period and location. Nothing can be said that encompasses all of these variations. This is an overview of those concepts, but I will say that Maat is probably the most overriding and enduring concept in Egyptian culture and religion. It was important no matter when or where you were in Egypt, though there was variation. Another reason I had a hard time making this because I wanted to do it justice. 2, this video series is to help you build your magical practice. Neither you nor I are ancient Egyptians. We will never fully understand their culture, and we can never replicate it. Such an endeavor is pointless. Our magic should serve us here and now. I will include advice on how to personalize these practices based on your needs and where you live. Also, even though you may not wish to base your magic on the ancient Egyptians, I hope these videos help you to see how others have practiced and give you an idea of what elements going into making a holistic tradition. 3rd, it's complicated because there are no 10 commandments. There are no pithy sayings that encompass Maat. Sure, you have things like the negative confessions, those evil deeds you deny participating in when you enter the hall of judgment. But they certainly are not all-encompassing, and they have exceptions. Because Maat is about balance, which to me is beautiful. It understands that life has circumstances. Rules like obeying the pharaoh can be overlooked when it's a bad pharaoh. The first question you might be asking yourself is, why start here? Why start with a moral code? I would argue that Maat is much more than that, but also a moral code or a way of being is where a lot of magical traditions start. Most famously, the law of the Lema in that magical system. It defines the magician's perspective on how the universe works. That there exists a higher order, that things are not just random. And if a magus can align themselves with that order, they can achieve miracles. Despite all the modern efforts to remove magic from spirituality, it's just not possible. Magic ultimately serves a higher purpose than the material. As you will see, Maat is how the ancient Egyptians thought the universe worked. It is something beyond humans, beyond magic, and even beyond the gods themselves. So let's try to define Maat. We're going to need more than a couple sentences for this. As part of my research, I read the paper by Dr. R. James Ferguson, The Ancient Egyptian Concept of Maat, Reflections on Social Justice and Natural Order. I like their summary. The nearest concept to that of justice in Egyptian is the notion of Maat, which is personified as a goddess, the daughter of Atum, and after the 18th dynasty as the daughter of Ra, who establishes Maat at the time of creation. However, Maat is a more fluid and pervasive concept than either that of justice or truth, and certainly was more than a unitary goddess with precise functions. Maat also includes connotations of order, harmony, righteousness, and true witness. While these are the characteristics of Maat, keep in mind what we are describing here is the very nature of the universe. It is by these principles creation is organized. Without them, nothing exists. Isfet, the force of destructive chaos, is necessary, inasmuch as nothing unitary can know itself without comparison. But if the magician wishes to effect any kind of change, and remember, magic, or Heka, is a natural force to the ancient Egyptians, then they must be done in accordance with Maat, the foundation of that natural order. Another important point is that unlike some other faiths, humans are not above or separate from other beings in creation. They are made in accordance with Maat. They may be special to their creator god, be that Ra or Atum or Ptah, depending on where and when you ask, but they are not created in God's image. Thus, the organization of human society must also follow the rules of Maat. This human Maat is what the Egyptians chiefly concerned themselves with. To get a grasp on Maat, let's review those negative confessions, which appear in almost all extant copies of the commonly called Book of the Dead, but the Egyptians called the Book of Going Forth by Day. In Ani's famous version, the list contains 42, which is, of course, the answer to life, the universe, and everything for you Douglas Adams fans. I'm going to cherry pick the list, and once again, this is not the extent of the concept of sin or wrongdoing in ancient Egypt. Note that all of them are addressed to an individual specific spirit, one of the judges of the underworld. You won't find these names as gods in Egyptian religion. Some have frightening characteristics, as they are dwellers in the underworld that are not gods. And so, they fit our definition of demons, though their purpose is not considered malignant. They only judge those who have made offense against Maat. And if you ask me, they would be a good pick as a spirit to summon to right wrongs done against you or others. You can also note that these spirits are coming forth from. Sometimes those are known places like Kemenu, and sometimes from known gods like Baas. Hail Hepket, who comest forth from Ker-Aha. I have not committed robbery with violence. Hail Fenty, who comest forth from Kemenu. I have not stolen. Hail Mkabet, who comest forth from Kernet. I have not slain men and women. Hail Ruruti, who comest forth from heaven. I have not purloined offering. Hail Arfi Mket, who comest forth from Suat. I have not stolen the property of the gods. Yeah, don't steal from the gods. Though, in a real sense, this is an admonition not to steal from the priests who depend on those offerings. Consuming the offerings to the gods is fine, even required, but only for certain people. As magus or priest of your own temple, I recommend you do so. Hail Neba, who comest and goest. I have not uttered lies. Hail Setkesu, who comest forth from Hensu. I have not carried away food. Hail Hrafra, who comest forth from thy cavern. I have not made none to weep. Hail Enam Snef, who comest forth from the execution chamber. I am not a man of deceit. Coming forth from the execution chamber, obviously not one to be fucked with. Hail Sertu, who comest forth from Anu. I have not been angry without just cause. Hail Heruru, who comest forth from Nahutu. I have terrorized none. Hail Nekhenu, who comest forth from Heket. I have not shut my ears to the words of truth. Hail Anhedemeth, who cometh forth from Saul. I am not a man of violence. Hail Nebheru, who cometh forth from Nechphet. I have not acted with undue haste. Hail Sekheru, who cometh forth from Uten. I have not pried into others' matters. Hail Tamsepu, who cometh forth from Tetu. I have not worked witchcraft against the king. I'm not sure about the translation of witchcraft here. As far as I have learned, there is no concept of witchcraft in ancient Egypt, only magic. This does reinforce what Rittner said in that magic is fine as long as you don't use it against the king or for fell purposes. Hail Enebhad, who cometh forth from Tebu. I have never stopped the flow of water of a neighbor. Hail Ahi, who cometh forth from Nu. I have never raised my voice. Hail Raket, who cometh forth from Saul. I have not cursed God. This is something I've had a hard time accepting. But the Egyptians did use the words God and gods somewhat interchangeably. They did have a concept of a unified divine source, while at the same time acknowledging the multiplicity of divinity, demonstrating once again the Egyptians had no problem with multiple truths. Hail Chesertep, who comest forth from the shrine. I have not carried away the Kenfu cakes from the spirits of the dead. Yeah, don't steal from your ancestors either. And by the way, modern day Egyptians are obsessed with pastries, and they are awesome. Don't pass up the opportunity to try them. There's a sweet cheese pastry called Kenfu that is made today. Just don't take them from your ancestors. Hail Aneth, who comest forth from Maat. I have not snatched away the bread of the child, nor treated with contempt the God of my city. Another one I've read on another list, which touches my heart, considering my day job: do not steal from an orphan. I know that was a lot, but you need to understand the complexity of Maat and how it was applied to many situations one faces in life. Speaking of complexity, it's time to talk about the pharaoh. I am, by nature, anti-authoritarian. Obedience to a king just doesn't sit right with me, and perhaps on this point I'm too Western to be Egyptian. I'm fine with that. But Maat demands following the law of the pharaoh. One of the interesting things I learned about pharaohs during my trip to Egypt, which is probably something I should have picked up sooner, is the role they played in Egyptian religion. How in some respects the pharaoh is a psychopomp. His trip to the afterlife was supposed to lead his people to the afterlife. An important role. Another way to look at it is that the dead pharaoh is an intermediary to the gods. He goes to them to fulfill requests of the people. It can be seen kind of like the cult of the saints in Catholicism. Like those saints, he intercedes for the people on earth to the gods. As I've mentioned before, the cult of the saints is essentially an ancestor cult. Take that and crank it up to 100, and you have the cults of the pharaohs, almost all of whom built mortuary temples that were sometimes attended hundreds of years after their death. It would be a shame to leave out this important role in your cosmology, and maybe I'll do an entire video on this one day. For now, a couple of things that can fill in for the pharaoh. Of course, you can use your own ancestors, that's perfectly fine. Perhaps picking one with a spiritual bent would be appropriate. Another option would be to turn to the Greek magical papyri, many of which were actually Egyptian in origin and lead heavily into the Egyptian magical tradition. There we find the renowned headless rite, something we have talked about on the channel before. In it we have the line, I am the messenger of the pharaoh Asranafris. Who is this guy? There's no historical record for him, Asranafris. There has been some speculation on what the name means, including the idea it is a mistranslation of Osiris the Beautiful. You could use Osiris himself to fulfill this role. It makes sense, and he was said to be the king of Egypt before his death. And he is the king of the underworld. You can also see Asranafris as a sort of proto-pharaoh. Just like my speculation that the headless one represents the first shaman to blow his head off and travel the underworld. What I'm mostly getting at here is that you can have your own personal Maat. Now I have Depeche Mode running through my head. And you should. Let's take another perspective from other magical traditions. In Jewish Kabbalah, the practice is restricted to older men who are married and head of a household. Certainly not a modern perspective, but there's some truth to the idea that in order to be a successful magician, you must first have wisdom and stability in your life. Magic is a mind-altering art. more than one magus has gone off the rails by diving too deep into their magical practice. It is best for your own sanity to have a center of gravity, to have some balance in your social and economic life. To create that balance, your Maat is what keeps you happy and secure. Your Maat is a life where chaos is kept at a minimum. There are many things we can't control, but work on having a grasp on the ones you can. There's much more to this topic, perhaps another video, but I think that's all a good place to end for now. Let's get on with those announcements. First, some good news. This year's Red Goddess oil is now in my Ko-Fi shop. It's even more special than years past. This is the one made with roses from my own garden, cinnamon, sandalwood, and steeped in almond oil. Typically, I finish it off with a touch of Bulgarian attar of roses. This year, I acquired in Egypt essence of Damascus and Egyptian rose, which was used to finish off the blend. Remember, these are limited. Once this year's batch is gone, it's gone. I can only grow so many roses. Now the sad news. The reason you haven't seen a new video in over a month. My cancer is back, which will mean another round of chemo, and I am sure a slowdown on the channel. While I've yet to start the treatment, I have been spending extra time getting my own house in order so that I can weather this blow. In the end, I am grateful I got to go to Egypt. It has given me more spiritual energy, and I am resolved to beat this again. And you can help me out by subscribing to my Ko-Fi or buying from my Ko-Fi shop or Redbubble stores. If you lack the funds, the best thing you can do is like and subscribe, and make sure to watch videos to the end to get those watch hours in there where they need to be for monetization. As always, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.